Rich people of Reddit who married someone significantly poorer. What surprised you about their previous way of life? Making financial decisions based around the 3-paycheck month. If you're paid every 2 weeks, most months you get 2 paychecks, and all of your monthly bills and budgeting is based on those 2 paychecks. But twice a year there are 3 paydays in a month, and that's when you can actually solve problems. That's when you can get the car registered, or fix the dryer, or get the cat spayed. The other 10 months you're doing maintenance and trying to scrape by. 3 paycheck months you can actually try to fix problems. More of a funny incident, but I was the poor one. My husband, at the time still boyfriend, took me out to a very nice restaurant. Waiter asked if I want pepper on my Caesar salad that was just made tableside. I said sure, and he goes about it. Thing is, I didn't know you had to say stop. My husband slowly realizes this, but decides to see it play out. He did eventually say that I need to say stop. I just thought a Caesar was had this way, as it was my first time even eating a salad that wasn't just iceberg and ranch dressing. It still tasted fine, just a little bit too much pepper, haha. Sandwiches. When I made him a sandwich I only put 1 thin slice of meat in it. He couldn't believe that was how I had sandwiches growing up. My partner and I are both poor, but different kinds of poor. She's never been homeless or not had enough to eat, while I have. She's extremely frugal and hates buying anything we don't need. I feel a desperate need to stock up if we have any extra money, and it's a fight for me not to fill our house with canned and dry goods in case we don't have enough money to buy food next month for some reason. It makes no sense, but my instinct is to hoard food because there just was never enough of it around growing up. I didn't marry this woman, but when we started dating, she always wanted to chill at my place, never hers. Which was fine. But she gained 35 pounds in just like a few months of dating. She was 100 pounds when we started dating. Not that it was a bad thing. 1, I am a chubby man, and 2, I was just glad she wasn't pregnant. Anyway, turns out her family couldn't afford dinner sometimes. So suddenly she had a place to eat every night and gorged herself. I fell in love with my uni best friend who really didn't have any money. When I got a job, for my birthday I decided to plan a holiday and offered to bring him along. It didn't even occur to me that this was his first ever holiday he'd ever taken. His family could never afford it growing up, and he'd never really thought to do it as an adult. I'm from an upper middle class American family and my husband is from a poor SE Asian family. It is hard for me to wrap my head around how poor they really were when he was growing up. He told me about eating only rice with sugar for meals because they couldn't afford meat. They were probably living off less than 50 cents per day for a family of 5 at times. Hamburger helper. She hates it because it would be her meal 5x a week growing up. I had never even seen HH before I went to college and loved that stuff. 10 for $10 deals are awesome. I'm not rich at all, but my husband came from a very poor Mexican village. He told me he used to shower outside, because there was no in-house plumbing, and use leaves as toilet paper. I mean, there's poor, and there's my husband's previous life poor. He's been living in the US for 12 years now, but when we first met it was so interesting seeing life through his childlike eyes. Going to the cinema was a huge event for him. Heating food up in a microwave was a totally foreign concept. And staying at fancy hotels when we went on vacation was like whoa. I still see him surprised by things now and then, and it just reminds me how much I take my middle status class for granted. Not rich, but with a partner who was raised by a teen mom and grew up poor. Sometimes I just want rice and vegetables for dinner. That's a no from her. She won't go back. I was with a girl for a while who grew up in a pretty broken home. Still surprises me just how bad her spending habits are. She racks up credit card debt like it's nothing. When the family had people over for dinner, if they ended the prayer before the meal with FHB, Amen, it was a signal to let the children know that they don't have enough food for everyone, so take smaller servings and let the guests get a regular serving. FHB equals family, hold back. They were always generous to their friends and didn't let their lack of funds embarrass themselves when doing so. My so said, today I made rent, meaning, today I've earned enough, accumulated enough to pay the rent, and I realized that this is a monthly accomplishment to someone with no fixed income, salary. Long-term dating. Pets. I was always surprised by the number of pets she and her family had living in the trailer and how much of a share of their income they spent on them. Credit cards were avoided. For me growing up, we were encouraged to get a credit card in our name and use it as much as possible in order to build credit. There was always money to pay it off each month, so it made sense to 1. Build credit and 2. Collect airline miles or whatever the reward was back in the day. When we got together, she always used cash or a debit card. She had a credit card for emergencies, and avoided using it otherwise. It took a long time to get her over her aversion, skepticism. We were fortunate to have 2 good-paying jobs, though it also taught me a healthy appreciation for what it means to have a financial cushion. She lived in the desert without air conditioning. I dated a 1%er briefly. She was surprised I willingly went inside fast food restaurants. Edit, since people are saying 1% is still a huge range in income, I just looked up her dad. He pulls in $10 million a year. I'm from a middle-class family, but my wife's parents are near billionaires. 0.001%. She was shocked about many things, that I consider cost of food and groceries at all. They will go to gourmet food stores and spend over $1,000 and say things like, well, it's for food. We're ingesting this stuff, it should be the best. Booking non-first-class airfare on any long trip would be considered cruel and unusual punishment to her. No concerns about utilities, insurance premiums. No comparison shopping on routine things at all. Every vacation is the finest you can imagine. Oftentimes bordering on ridiculous. Having so many upsells on packages and bespoke items that it's just wasteful. No concept of debt and understanding of how normal people live. My wife was shocked when I save things that get wet or muddy. She would just want to throw things like clothes and fine items in the trash away when they were just lightly bruised. We're very much in love and have shown each other a lot. She enjoys hanging with my salt-of-the-earth mom more than her own family at this point. I like being spoiled here and there as well. It's a great mix. Edit, I've obviously adopted her standard of living. We met in medical school. She did a decent job of hiding her privilege. Our relationship grew out of our shared sense of humor and of course physical attraction. He was making good money but came from a poor family. One thing that surprised me was the lack of budgeting, no knowledge of a 401k, Roth era. Retirement seemed like something that he'd never get to do. So even though he made good money, he was starting to rack up credit card debt. Now he's much better at it than I am. He adores budgeting and looks forward to FIRE. Edit, FIRE is financial independence, retire early. There's a sub attached to this idea, financial independence. Sorry about the confusion. Not super rich by any means, but my husband said he'll always be surprised about the following: how I lived off of $13K in 2011, resiliency to survive financially and pursue my dreams of being he first college graduate, how I didn't know what spinach was or tasted like until our first few dates, in addition to hella other leafy greens, edited formatting and grammar. Sorry guys. Rich people of Reddit who want to marry someone significantly poorer. Hello. I'm from the poorer family, not super poor, but my in-laws have a stupid amount of money, so by comparison I'm very poor, but I think I can answer for her. We have 2 young kids, and my wife was shocked when I said we should look for clothes and toys for them at local flea markets and garage sales. The idea never occurred to her that we could save money by getting some gently used items. She had never even been to a garage sale in her life. She has grown to love them and now questions whether it is worth it to buy any item, new or not, before running to Amazon or a store. Her parents think it's disgusting we make our kids wear clothes that another child had before, but they don't pay my bills. I can answer this one. I did not grow up rich by any means, but I would say my family was upper middle class. My husband was born in Nicaragua and eventually moved to Texas, where his mother barely scraped by supporting him and his brother. Some of the things that surprised me: he never eats snacks. Ever. They didn't have food in their kitchen and he would go hungry sometimes. He said once they had an egg in the kitchen and he scrambled it and split it with his brother while his mom hungrily looked on. Now as an adult he doesn't understand snacking. If we eat a banana he thinks that is our next meal. He is very impressed with smaller things in life. He had one toy as a kid, truck, and now anything I get him he thinks is the most amazing thing in the world. He saves everything. He is the hardest worker I know. He never wants to be where he was. He is the most grateful, optimistic person I know. We've been having some problems, family drama, trying to sell our house, work stuff, etc. He is not afflicted by any of it. He is cool as a cucumber. He always says, "Did you eat today? Do you have a place to sleep? Does someone love you? Then you are better than most people." I dearly love him. He makes me see the world in a different, better way. I came from a relatively wealthy family, new money. My dad started his own business and grew up poor, and my wife came from a lower-income blue-collar family. We got married out of college and neither made much money in the beginning. My biggest surprise was how she wanted to spend money. She was shocked when my mom bought her $100 plus pair of jeans for a birthday. She couldn't wrap her mind around spending that much on jeans, but she wanted a motorcycle for me, which I don't ride in the first place. And then a new furniture set. And then a new bed. And then a new car. She wasn't concerned about savings or retirement. And she never wanted my parents' money for any of it. We are both way too proud of that. It took a long time for her to come around to having an emergency savings account, focusing on debt and not needing the other shit. She eventually realized that her parents wouldn't be in such a terrible situation because their spending habits are horrible. She still has it come out sometimes though. We recently paid off my car and she immediately thought I should get a new car. It doesn't directly relate to the amount of money they had, I don't think, but their place was always filthy. I mean, dog shit everywhere. My so lived with his mom sometimes, but would rotate between her and his father, and both places were this way. Dishes piled up, floors were grimy, the places stunk of dog pee and cigarette smoke. One time, I used the bathroom at one of his parents' places, and had to spread my feet while sitting on the toilet to avoid stepping in period blood. I mean, it was so disgusting. My so was baffled when, after we first got married and moved in with each other, every day he would come home to a, generally, I'm not perfect, spotless home. Now, on the flip side, I once dated a guy whose stepfather was a lawyer, so they lived a lavish lifestyle. The only thing that he was surprised about when it came to my lifestyle, was that I did not eat pizza with knife, fork, and a glass of wine. Lol. My family is far from rich, but I grew up closer to the upper middle class realm and was making 3x as much as my now husband when we met. He grew up extremely poor, and his family is still living that way. One big difference is how he's surprised that my parents pick up the check when we go out to celebrate a birthday or a graduation, and that my parents ask him to pick whatever restaurant he wants. Outside of the ritziest steakhouse in town, they don't care. To his family, a big meal out is going to McDonald's and not eating off the dollar menu. I'm serious. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe.